everyone. Welcome to another episode of the most famous person I barely met. We are really getting momentum, I feel. And I think this is about our 28th interview. I'll check the numbers. My accounting firm has not told me, but I'm very excited today because I have a great guest for everybody. His name is John Nagel. He is my friend of at least 20 years. We're both 25, so we met when we were five, but
Right.
he's been my friend for about 20 years. John Nagel has. We met in New York City. We were both working in helping fields, and I liked him right away. He made me laugh. He's funny. He's smart. He's wise. He's helped me in my career when he was directing a senior center out in Queens for LGBTQ individuals. He got me teaching a group there, writing, and I still do it. I do it for them as a group, but it's been about more than 12 years with these people, and I love them. So I'm always grateful to John for that. And we kept in touch, kept close. He moved cross country. I'll give you a little bit of what I know about this young man, and then he'll tell you about him. But he moved cross country to my great sadness, but to the luck of California because he moved to San Francisco in that area, pursuing a career in, he'll say it correctly, but senior care and end of life issues. He's an advocate for older adults. Um, Very, very passionate for that population, very good with them. And I believe now he's in Palm Springs doing that work. And I brought him here today to talk a little bit about that, but mostly to share a story or two because he's really a good storyteller. So, all that said, I'm excited and I'm going to say hello, Mr. Nagel. How are you?
Well, thank you, John, for that introduction. That was amazing. Great.
Thank you.
It's always great to see you, and it's an honor to be on your podcast. I'm very honored to be making my podcast debut. So this is very exciting for me, and I want to say thank you for having me. This is just a lot of fun, and it's great when you have friends like you that can do this, so they can just spread the joy and the love and the laughter about all we do together. So it's
Oh,
really great
thank you
fun.
so much. Yeah, this guy's great, people. This man is very good. And we share a lot of things, John and I. And one is a love of Long Island. I live right now full time in Long Island in the Hamptons. John will share he is a Hampton guy too, but he's from Long Island, but he loves the water. We went swimming together in the ocean. We've done a lot of things. And it's funny because I've lived here 3 years or whatever, but I'll call him for advice, especially driving. Like he knows the LIE, the back of his hand. He can tell you 17 stories about exit 45 on the LIE. But right now, you notice people, he's got a nice color. John, is that from the Palm Springs area sun? What are you doing?
Well, now is the time to be here. It is now snowbird season. I think it starts October to like May or March, and we get flooded with people here. And it's funny because Palm Springs has a lot of history and it's very old, like money here. So it's very interesting. It's got a rich history, plus with its architecture, with it, it's amazing for its mid-century architecture, as everyone knows. But it's funny, it's very much like an old town in one way, is that
Mm,
it really doesn't like change. It really just has
mm.
its verve of like just being that way.
Uh-huh.
And it's very classy. People come here as a destination stop. And the great thing
Mhm.
about Palm Springs, which is so alluring, is that the mountains are so close to you. So it feels
Oh,
like you're on this lunar kind of walk experience when you're driving around, the mountains are right there. Versus like
wow.
say Denver, if you go to Denver, you look at the distance and they're like 50
Yeah.
miles away. Here they're right in your face. So it's like all this rock energy you feel in this
Oh, I like
valley.
that.
Yeah, it's really cool. So it
So,
always feels like you're
yeah.
surrounded by heavy duty stuff, energy wise.
So
And
it's a desert. It's the desert.
yeah, it's a desert, like I said, but in the area where I am in Palm Springs, it's funny because they have these little towns that are connected all together, and it just kind of go one after another after another. It goes like Palm Springs, Cathedral City, and then Rancho Mirage, and then Palm Desert, and then Indio, and then you go out to Coachella, which are those Coachella fests that they are talking about
Uh-huh.
and stuff. So it's really fun to know that you're part of history in this town, but at the same time, it's historical, and at the same time, it's not, going to change very much. It's not very progressive in that sense.
So
Um,
can they tell you're from Long Island? Can the people
No,
handle
you know, it's funny because
it?
everyone I've ever met that if you're from Long Island, you should talk like Fran Drescher, but I
Yeah.
don't, you know, and so I said, you know, the only thing I will say, I tell people, you know, I'm a Southern Long Islander. I'm from the southern tip of Long Island. And I believe that we are Southerners. We slur our R's and we just make it like, you know, that orange over there and those trees over there are forest. And people go, oh wow, that's really cool. It's like, yeah, I mean, Long Islanders do have regional accents, but in the southern part of Long Island, we do not have an accent. So I just tell
I
people,
felt like I was on Cat on a Hampton Roof right there.
yeah, you could be with this conversation.
Mendacity.
Oh, the
So,
smell of mendacity in the air.
so I
So
gave your bio, but give the real one. So tell us about your journey. Where'd you grow up? Give us the brushstrokes. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get out to how you got to where you are now?
yeah, great. I love it. So for me, I've always loved Long Island. And it really comes back to my dad. My dad was a salesperson on Long Island who sold home heating oil, and
Hmm.
he just went up and down the island. And we used to, you know, I used to go with him on some drives for sales calls and just watch him. So, sales is, you know, a genetic thing, you know, it's in our blood. And my dad just loved Long Island, and he would show me, you know, the points of interest that he liked, the beaches, for example. And, you know, when they were driving, you know, when that great migration from like Brooklyn or Queens, wherever, people just drove on Long Island. And one guy said to my dad, you know, just keep driving along the coast until you find what you like. And we
Oh.
went to Port Jefferson. And that 1968 in Port Jefferson was like
Hmm.
a stinking fish town. Mom was like, this
Not
place,
anymore.
my place, I know, my mom's like, this place stinks. We're out of here. So we just kept on driving and then we went to Long Beach. And Long Beach
Hmm.
at that time was full of group homes and nursing homes. And I'm like, how am I going to raise kids? There's no backyards. And the beach is nice, but there's no backyard. And we're surrounded by nursing homes. And this isn't really it either. So we keep driving, doot, 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 doot. And they kept driving. You see a little map, you know, doot, doot, doot. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden we wound up in Sayville. And Sayville, Long
Able.
Island is great because it's also the jettison to Fire Island, as everyone knows. So that had some cachet. And we lived on a very nice piece of property on a canal. So that's where I learned to fish and crab and also ice skating in the winter and
Oh, how
stuff.
nice.
Yeah, it was just an amazing backyard experience to have that backyard of the water. And it's no lie. I mean, it's really true. In our kitchen bay window, our table faced this window, and you would look out, and the sun would set in our backyard every night.
Mm.
And that's why we lived
Oh,
on
beautiful.
yeah, we lived on Sunset Drive. I mean, it was
Oh,
crazy.
God.
So yeah, so it was brilliant, you know. So I grew up there, and then I lived in the 90s, the gay 90s. I was on the Upper West Side. I call those the Woody Allen years because that's when Mia and Woody were duking it out. Uh, and I would see Mia Farrow's poor son, who was terribly crippled, at least, you know, had a
Mm.
deformity, trying to walk down the street. I just wanted to be
Oh.
like, help him get there. And he was
Oh.
such a trooper. Yeah, he was amazing. You would see people all the time. I make it analogous to like Hannah and her sisters moment. You know, if everyone remembers that movie, it was
Right.
very funny. It was, you know, the Diane Weist of that Upper West Side. You know, and that's all at the same time in the 90s when, you know, Will and Grace came out. They were based on West End Avenue. And if you remember, the 90s were quite famous because a lot of things were New York centric. Friends, Will and Grace, Mad About You, all these shows were
That's
all
right.
New York
That's
centric.
right. It was all
So
Manhattan.
yeah, it was all Manhattan. So it was literally it place. And I lived on 84th Street right off
Seinfeld.
Seinfeld, right. Which is funny because back then I never understood that show. And I watch it now and I go, oh, that's why it's famous. Uh, I didn't get it back then. But at 84th Street off Central Park West, I lived, and it was great. It was a wonderful experience. But you know, trying to break into acting, which I was doing at that time, was very difficult,
Hmm.
and stuff. And I had an agent, and they were like, "Just wait for the phone to ring and start waiting tables." And I was like,
Yeah.
"That's really not for me." And so I just kind of like burnt out and was like, "This isn't working." So
Hmm.
where did I go? I moved out to the Hamptons, and I worked for
Nice.
Dan Papers,
Oh.
which was really incredible experience because I was in sales.
Hmm.
No surprise there. And I worked for Dan's Papers, and you know, all the rich and famous people that would come through those doors were hilarious. But I
God.
will tell you a funny story, if I may.
Sure.
I was in charge of the back end of the book with the
Uh-huh.
classified ads,
Uh-huh.
and I put that all together and stuff, and I was in charge of that. And the funny part was is that I was doing that, and I wanted to branch out because I also was an English major, so I'd done some writing in college. So I said, I want to review, because I'd done some acting. I want to do a theater review for you guys. So they
Uh-huh.
said, go out to the Quag Playhouse and go see this play. And I saw it, and I'm really not, I wasn't being mean, but it was really bad. And I was politely telling it in the review,
Uh-huh.
and they called Dan's Papers and they said, if you ever send that son of a bitch here, we don't want him. We don't do you ever send him again. He is the worst. He shredded us. Forget it. Don't ever send him back. So I was like marred from that. So like it
You
was the first
had your integrity,
I
John.
did. I was like, you guys suck. You're just like, I know you're community theater, but you can do better. And that's what I was trying to tell them. So then to get one step further was that there was an art exhibit, a little art exhibit in the Main Street. I think there's an art gallery on Main Street on I think it's Wayne's. I'm not sure, but it's a Main Street art gallery I went to. And the woman who was their in resident art critic was a woman from the New York Times, and she I was on sabbatical. So I know very little about art, but I just critiqued it very lightly, just
Mhm.
was just telling about it. And she cornered me and said, "Excuse me, um, what do you really know about art?" And I said, "I'm just filling in here, and I'm just, and she's like, "Well, I'm from the New York Times, and I don't think you'll be writing those again." So that was strike number two. So there you
Mhm.
go. Exactly. But it was very exciting to work for Dan's Papers because I got to,
Oh,
write for
great
them,
paper.
get to write for them, get to know Dan and see how that paper was made and the people
Yeah.
that came to the doors. At that time, Kim Cattrall was coming in all the time. She wasn't working in Sex and the City. And she was looking for a job probably. And I was like, okay, how are you doing? And then I got to meet another art person I did interview was Ross Bleckner.
Oh,
And he had Truman Capote's house. So that was pretty
oh.
funny. Yeah. And I didn't know that at the time. And I interviewed him and I was just trying to get a, snapshot of him, like living in the Hamptons and living in
Mhm.
art. And he showed me his gallery and so forth. And then the pool boy came who was, 22 years old and strapping muscular. And I got pushed aside and I was told.
The
So then
pool
I was
boys always ruin everything.
exactly, I was like, this guy is 20 years old.
I know I have a little Truman Capote in my history because he was in Waynescott. He lived in Waynescott.
Yeah,
And I don't know. I've been told that he liked a beverage or two. And
a
he used to
few.
always kind of they have to pull his car out of the potato fields at night. He was he was in cold blood, those potato fields. So
Those ears of corn were like stuck in his ear. Pull them
he
out. Yeah.
with the pool boy. The pool boy
With the
was
pool boy. Yeah, so I was pushed out from that experience. I was like, wow, okay, see you later. And so it was great. It was a really great experience, but it was very interesting to see how, people who it's fascinating to get a glimpse of the people that work in the Hamptons,
mm,
who are serving the rich and famous, so to speak. I mean, it was funny because this was during the winter. I was there too, and you would have all these guys that were living in these huge mansions. So the people who owned them weren't there, or they wanted someone to have the heat running, make sure the electric work or make sure their house was primed when they came out. So these are the kind of people that live in these big mansions, and you would drive up to them and you'd be like, holy smokes, this is like a multi-million dollar house and there's one person in it. Really
yeah,
creepy. It was very kind of creepy at times
it
because I
is.
guess
It
at
is.
night, if you try to approach these houses and one person in them, a little scary.
Yeah.
But it was great.
No, that's why I've resisted becoming a billionaire. I don't want that problem.
Yeah.
You
Ugh.
know, I've taken a vow of chastity, John.
And so you should. And that's a good thing. That's something to shoot for.
So you leave the Hamptons, and then what
And then I
happens?
came back to New York and my career started with hospice care and I became an advocate for end of life because we don't know many issues about end of life, right? No one teaches about end of life issues. So I was always like, what really happens when you're going to die? Not just the physical, but like the whole bag of beans, right? What happens?
Mm,
No one teaches us that. So I really became immersed in that and it was a great experience. And from that, I pursued being a chaplain. So I wanted to become an interfaith minister. And this is where you come in, Johnny. If you remember, when I was doing that training to be a chaplain and an interfaith minister, this was the time to remind people when I remember you had said this distinctly to me, that there were people getting licenses to be ministers in
that's
10
right.
minutes online,
That's
and they were
right.
getting the benefits of that,
Yeah.
and everyone was doing it. And then there was an incident in one of the New York hospitals with interfaith minister, and they said, you know what? No interfaith ministers, forget it. You guys are all banned. So that's when I went into aging. And I became a social worker, and I went to Hunter, and where I was a LGBT senior director of a program in Queens and I did programming for them. And then I got my degree in social work, and it was
Nice.
about aging. So it was again end of life, aging kind of go together, and really because that's another factor, right? we never get taught anything about what is successful aging. We can't even agree to what that is, you know.
Hmm.
So when we think about it, what is an older adult, right? And by the way, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. And if people walk away with this one piece of knowledge, I will be so happy. Is that
Yeah,
nobody says elderly anymore. We don't say that anymore. That word just is out the window. That's last century. Senior, you can get by, but older adult is great because it blankets a whole swath of age, right? Because when you
right,
think about it, a senior can be 50-year olds to 55-year-olds,
right.
65-year-olds. What is the senior? We can't even agree what that is.
That's
You know,
right. I like that.
you know. So if we can walk away with people saying older adult to blanket all people, that it's really good
Yeah,
because
I,
it's a
I
big,
agree. I agree. No, elderly is just it's a terrible
yeah,
word for that.
it is, and it connotates really bad. Now, if you have an elder, that's different,
Mhm.
right? An elder is a good thing, but again, I think that that's a big takeaway because if you go to the movies, you're considered senior at 55. If you go
Yeah,
to see a Social Security,
yeah. The only
65.
benefit is you get the free coffee at McDonald's. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I always claim the older adult status. I'm fine with that. It's like I said, because movies are expensive. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's the numbers too. It's like my I'm not trying to pitch myself, but my first book I ever wrote was called The Book of Ash about a kind of a supposedly enlightened society, and they had the after 60, if someone asked you how old you were, you said I'm past the age of counting. And so that was it. You didn't say I'm 72. I didn't
Right.
just past the age of counting. Because what I'm sort of was getting at is when we get to a certain age, it doesn't matter anymore the number. You feel it's like a car. When it goes past 200,000 miles, it's running well, it's running
Right.
well, right? Some cars, young cars. So that's how I kind of feel, is like it's very cliche. You're not a number, but we get hung up on the number.
Right. Right. And when I was doing that aging field, I was very involved in politics, local politics, and politicians, and it was great work, and it's all I knew. But I always had this deep desire to live more in nature, and I always wanted to be in nature more. And I
Hmm.
went to see a friend who lived in San Francisco, and I had been there just once before, and I literally, by a miracle, I literally walked into a job providing senior
Wow.
meals for the homeless in San Francisco. So that was really exciting because I really got into the trenches there, dealing with the homeless people of San Francisco and providing meals for them, uh,
Hmm.
and senior meals, especially for older adults. And that was a great experience. It was draining and very difficult, as you can imagine, dealing with that
Of course.
population. And it was great. And then I had graduated to doing case management for a senior housing complex. And then they promoted me to be an affordable housing manager of the whole unit. It was like 262 seniors I was in charge of.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I went through COVID, and I got COVID
Hmm.
a couple times, and I was just burnt out. And at that time, I had gotten the COVID vaccine for our seniors, so it was very draining work. And because I had worked throughout COVID, I didn't get to stay home, so to speak. So then after that, I was pretty tired, after that experience.
Sure.
And like a lot of people, I had heard people were moving to Palm Springs because of the
Hmm.
weather and just a change. And I literally applied for one job in a hospice out here and I got it. And I just said, well, I
Wow.
guess that's meant to be.
So
So
how long you been in Palm Springs now?
it'll be just over 3 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty
Wow.
exciting.
It's very exciting. What a journey. So I mean, I'm a captive audience because I'm a big fan of yours, but it's really inspiring. Um, I'm such a great believer in this. As we get older, I love people that are getting better.
Mm,
And by better, there's not, how do I say this? I don't want to hug the mic here. It's not about better in the sense of better. It's about that they get this broader sense of learning and excitement. It's like they got a lot of left, it's not so much like I'm coming, the plane's not landing. The
right.
plane is kind of keep going. And I think to keep going is to do sort of what you do, which is follow your interests, follow your passion, follow what you think you're good at and where you and then letting life kind of like, you said it was lucky I met this, but luck is, preparation meets opportunity. But
I,
sort of living your way that way, it's really a good way. It just makes it like, what's next? right?
Right. Well, that's the thing. Is aging is not, the end. It's really just the beginning. And it's really hard because, aging boomers now are going to be, going to that later phase of life and they'll define aging the way they want and they're independent. And if you can live a certain lifestyle, that's great. But, I'm a Gen Xer as well, and they're the smallest generation and the ones below us, the millennials, are pretty large. So Gen Xers, I feel, are not going to be really seen or heard or validated in the aging mix. They kind of be, and then the funny thing is that they're the most resilient, generation because of their upbringing.
Yeah,
And so that actually is the blessing because that will help them through older adult life. So I
yeah.
want to tell people that, they're afraid of that. I know because they feel that they're going to be not seen and heard, but that resilience that they had through their upbringing will carry them to the end.
Well, this is a big question, and
Mhm.
we don't have that much time to do it. But what would your quick, because we want to get to the main thing. But
Yeah.
but I'm very interested, so I'm gonna put mine. If you could just give some advice for someone older, what do you see as the most success? How does someone
Mhm.
sustain themselves, like both not just physically but emotionally? Like for what do you see in adults that have kind of got it together at the end that they're happy? What's something there?
I am so glad you asked that. That's a great question because it's really the truth of that I've been seeking as well. And I have learned that. And one of the few secrets I have learned about successful aging is that you are living life, and by working is a really good thing, even if it's part-time. Even if it's part-time. You have a schedule, you have a set time, you punch in, you punch out, increases socialization, some
Mm.
skills. Even if it's a Walmart greeter, you're meeting people, you're socializing. I mean, I definitely want to be the oldest person in the world collecting tickets at a movie theater so I can get free movie passes and cherry Coke. But that's another story. But yeah, that you need to be, engaged. And volunteering helps a lot. Yeah, you have to be engaged in life. There are lots of clubs, you have to be active. And I think it's very interesting how people's worlds kind of close down as they age. But I think if you look at it another way, it's a way of opening up. You don't
Mm.
have all those societal pressures of a job, or if you do, you have, you work part-time. You have to be engaged and you have to find out what your passion is to engage
Right.
life with. But the most important thing is to be available emotionally to what life presents itself and not close down.
What about the difference between engaged online per se? Because of
Yeah.
course, people who aren't as mobile and all that, does that give the same satisfaction to folks as actually seeing, being close to someone?
Yeah, I think it can be. Like I said, there are lots of clubs you can join online, and there are things you can do via Zoom, but it is important to get out there. And physical exercise is a part of that. Even if, like I said, now, how many videos have you seen? Everyone emphasized one thing. What do they emphasize? Walking. Just walk. Walk anywhere. That's exercise now. We know the value of that. Get outside. Get into nature. For me, getting into nature and being on Long Island is about being in nature because I love the water. I love being on the
Mm.
water. And I'll give a little plug. My favorite beach is, if I get this right, correct me if I'm wrong, is there a large restaurant called the Maiden Arms?
I think so. I don't think they let me in, but I've heard of
Yeah, they wouldn't let me in either, but there's a little parking there. There's parking there. There's an entrance to the beach.
it. Beautiful.
And if you can check that out,
Okay.
find it, folks. It's a beautiful little hidden gem onto the beach from there.
Beautiful.
Picturesque, it's beautiful. Maiden Arms, it's right there, and then right there's a parking, and you go on the beach from there. It's my little,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Well, I think when I get to be 90, that's my job. I'm going to take tickets at the Maiden. I'm going to take
yeah.
codes at the Maiden. Is having purpose important, John, for the old like, or is it more
You
just
know what?
engagement and
I think engagement. I think, I think that's hard for people to define, People have found their purpose in their past careers and lives, and they define themselves by that, especially men, find, like I said, that diminished quality of life because
yeah,
they define themselves by what they did. So, yeah, you have to be engaged. But I think another thing is realizing that you've done the work inside. You get to look at
yeah.
yourself,
That's
reflect,
such good advice.
and realize that you may have made mistakes and make amends. Say you're sorry to people that you need to, reach out to those people. And people say, oh, you don't need to say that, but like it's okay. But you're like, no, but I need to say it.
Yeah, so
And so that's
wise.
the thing,
No, this is really listen. That so worthwhile. I heard it too, and I love that because it's nice to have a little job, and it's nice
Yeah.
to you don't have to you don't have to be lumberjack to have a little job. greeting sounds beautiful, right? You know,
Yeah. And
so
again, working a cash register, I mean, like I said, it's not rocket
yeah.
science. You can do it. I mean, like I said, how many older adults have you seen in odd jobs? And you're like, wow,
I
I
wonder
didn't,
if I can get paid to be at the diner just saying, "Where are you from?" You know what I mean? Like that's my kind of.
right. Or
Well,
one,
Johnny. I call him Johnny One. I'm Johnny Two. He's Johnny One.
right.
This is all good. I might have you on another time just to talk about older adult issues because and it's so important. And my
Because we don't get that
generation,
education.
we take care. I'm taking care of my mother. She's 92 and all that.
God
But
bless her. Yeah.
I'm seeing the writing on the wall for my own self too. So I want to be proactive with this. And
Yeah. Just be
you're
open, be open. That's one thing we all need to be is just be
yeah.
open
So maybe
and meet
we'll
people
have you
where they're
back.
at.
We'll have you back for just a show on that. But right now, let's segue into something very fun. So now, John Nagel, the man in front of me, he's a worldly guy. He's been around. He's fun. He's genial. He meets a lot of people. He's met a lot of famous people. But I'm going to ask him to narrow it down and share a story about da 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 the most famous person you barely met. I will say, hit us with your rhythm stick, John. What do you got?
All right. Well, I am not going to tell this person's name because I don't want to be sued. Like I
Okay.
said, for your listeners here, but I will give a clue. This person was a very famous movie star in the 1970s, and he was king of the box office, excellent reputation, worked with the finest actors, everybody from Al Pacino to Sir Laurence Olivier, an amazing man. And I was working at Dance Papers, and someone said, "Hey, John, what are you doing on Wednesday nights?" And I just moved there. I didn't know many people. And he said, "Yeah, I got this friend, and their nanny goes off on Wednesdays. Can you just watch this one little girl for them?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I've worked with kids before, and I'm good with babies. Sure." She was like 2.5, three. She was like 3 years old, 3 to 4 years old. And I went for the interview there to meet them. And it was really funny because this movie star guy was sitting there in a Speedo. He was about 5'5", 130 pounds, and had a sundial in front of his face like this. And it was reflecting in my face. And I couldn't talk to him because the sun was blaring in my face so much. And he's interviewing me, he goes like, "So you think you can do this in this Hollywood voice?" And I'm like, "But I can't see, but I know that you're in a Speedo and you've got a sundial in my face." And he's like, "You're hired." So I was like, "Okay." So Wednesday nights come along, and I was like, "Okay, this is a great story. This is awesome." And the wife of this famous movie star was going to yoga and said, "The dinner's in the oven for the kid. Give that to her, and I'm out of here." So I'm like, "Okay."
Okay.
So it just, it was just a funny little incident there. And, I'm just like, okay, we had the dinner. And then I turn around and all of a sudden I see this 3-year-old girl on the windowsill she had climbed up from the ground up onto the kitchen counter, and she grabs a vitamin C tablet that's like this big and puts it in her mouth. And I'm like, holy shit. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And I said, so because they're big, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I didn't know vitamins could kill a kid. I didn't know back, this is 30, 20 years ago. And I didn't know what to do. So I stuck my finger in her mouth, and I'm like, she's like, and I'm trying to grab this thing, and she's like, it looked like a
Okay.
scene from The Exorcist. And she's like, ah.
Okay.
And the whole thing just popped out of her mouth.
Okay.
And I was like, oh God, thank God she didn't choke on that. I think because it was a really big pill, like suckers. And she's like looking at me, and she's all red. She's like, she's giving me like Terminator eyes, like, you're
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And then the wife had come home, and she said, "Oh, I'm so grateful for all the great work you're doing with her. She really likes you." And you know what? She hasn't been feeling well. So I told her that she could have one of those vitamin C tablets. Did she take one?
No.
Yes. And I'm like,
You said you're right here.
it's right here. If you look on the floor, it's somewhere around here.
No.
And I was like this 3-year-old girl
You were
who
you were
allowed
like
to take
right
a vitamin C tablet, and I'm making her choke on it by sticking my finger in her mouth to get it
now.
out.
That's such a good story. Now
And
I
I
have
just want to, the context, I have to tell you this one thing. The context is at that time there was a story going around. This is what made me this paranoid. There was a story going on the news. There was a British nanny who had shook American a baby she was caring for, and he died.
oh
So
that's
I was very like, it's like she shook him,
right,
and he
right,
died.
right.
And
You
I
didn't,
was thinking, and
well,
here,
you
yeah,
only stuck your finger down her throat. You didn't shake her. You
yeah,
didn't shake
exactly.
the pill
Yeah,
out of her
exactly.
mouth.
I didn't turn her upside down.
Well, they
Yeah.
could have told, I hate to say it, but the mother could have told you
Right.
before, hey, here's a pill, let
Right.
her take this,
Right.
rather than you turn around and the kid's on the hanging up like King
Hanging
Kong.
off the windowsill. Right.
Well,
So that was my funny little
I
story.
have to ask when the actor came home, was he still wearing a Speedo or did he go out and did he wear pants out?
He did wear pants. He did wear pants. He did wear pants, and he was making a film at that time. I remember. So I was told that I was not allowed to speak to him. And like I said, so the funny part is another anecdote was that the nanny's off for the Wednesday Halloween, and we're gonna have a little party here. Do you mind looking after a few kids while the adults have dinner? And I'm like, sure, no problem. So I get there, and there are 20 kids. I'm like, holy smokes, how am I gonna watch 20 kids? And the adults are having party. And so I didn't know what to do. So they had this is like a house on the ocean there. I said, okay, kids, we're gonna play hide and go seek. Go! And just made them run outside and they're like, ah! And, like running all over and like tiring them out. I'm like, I can't find you. Where are you? I'm like, oh. And then all of a sudden, that little girl came back, and you know what she was for that Halloween?
What?
She was a devil, and she had red face and two horns coming out of her head. And she had a bag of candy and she had chocolate all over her face. And she looked at me and she started shaking from all the sugar. She started shaking. I thought she was having like a seizure. So I grabbed the candy, I just away from her, and starts screaming, starts screaming. And the mother comes running down and says, "What's wrong?" And it's like, she's shaking from sugar shock or something. She's like medicated on too much sugar. What's going on? And she's like, I think she's fine. She goes, just let her hold the bag.
Just
So
being
here,
just being
this kid's
close to the
shaking.
sugar helped her.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was like, are you enabling this addict or what? Give her the bag. And so she's like holding the bag and she's like this, my bag. With the
She's now
horns.
the head of Health and Human Services
Yes, with
for
the
the world
horns
of
and the red face. The horns and the red face.
boy. That's ingrained in you.
Yeah.
That's a little PTSD. That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I was like, whoa. Like,
So
but
that propelled you to work with older adults. That was
I was like, yeah, we're done. Yeah.
we're done with the children. That's really good stories. It's
Yeah.
the Hampton story too.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Because
yeah. I mean, I remember once somebody famous asked me to stay at their house because they were away. I don't know why, but I did. But it was so creepy because this
yeah.
house is like pitch black. I
Oh
slept
no,
with
they're so
my clothes
scary.
on. I left my clothes on. I left at 6 a.m. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm like, geez. I had
No,
every I
it's
had
the
every light on in the house. So any Hampton house I go to alone, I put all the lights on.
it's
Put
the
every light
biggest it's the biggest argument for like communism in the world because out here there's so many huge houses and no one's in them.
on.
No
Right.
one's in them. And there's such a lack of housing in the world. There's no one in them. And when we were kids in the summer, during the week we used to play where you run to someone's house, swim in their pool, and jump out and run. And we no one was chasing us. There was no one around.
Right. What fun is that?
It
Jump
was
in, jump
fun.
out.
You pretend.
No
Oh,
reaction. Right, exactly. They used to do that at Fire Island too. They used to do that. It's even worse because the houses are really close together. So you
yeah.
have to
No,
jump
so,
from one to
but out
another.
here, but I kind of get to think they're just creepy. It's very dark. It's very, but that's such a Hampton story because they're just these people. They're just around and they're a little bit off and they're a little odd. And I love the image of you can't even see the face, but you can see the Speedo, but not the face because of the sun. But there's
Right,
something very poignant about that to me, just speaks of that era. You know what I
right.
mean? That
Oh yeah.
person. Yeah.
Like you said, there's so many people floating around, like I said, that were just,
Well,
passing through or going
I
through.
love it. I love it. Listen to me here. I always ask people the same question after they tell a story.
Hmm.
If you saw this person
Hmm.
again, the one with the Speedo, what would you say?
I would say I would appreciate it if you told me a little more about the truth of what I was entering into.
There you go. See? That's right. Isn't that those are words to live by too, right?
Yeah.
Just
I wish
tell
you
us.
just
Just
tell
tell
me.
us.
Right. And exactly. And, you know, because I remember him. I remember I was disgruntled. I think I did get one word into him by saying to him, saying, "Hey, I don't mind helping you out, and 2 or 3 kids is one thing, but 20,
20.
you
I
kind
know.
of should have let me know." And he just shook his head and goes, "Well, John, you didn't know it, but 2 of those kids were HIV positive, and you did a good thing tonight."
That's so strange.
And I went, "Okay, thank you for
That
telling."
doesn't, the point was that you didn't tell me that there was 25,
Yeah, right. And then, so he's trying to make me feel bad because
Yeah,
I had 20 kids and I didn't know. And at that time, this is so long ago, a child to be HIV positive was like, scary,
yeah, yeah,
but then he turned the tables on me
yeah.
and made me feel like,
Make you
well,
feel bad.
yeah, yeah. I was like, yeah, you're not paying me that much to do that for, 20 kids, but I appreciate the antidote. And then I just felt like saying to what I really wanted to say was like,
Yeah,
and scene, cut.
yeah.
Great scene. That was a great scene. I saved that for the
Uh,
film. And I'm
It's,
sitting there going, mm-hmm.
I'm really glad you wrote this, you said that story because, it reminds me not to wear my Speedo when I'm tanning like that.
Yeah,
I,
with the
I think,
sundial.
because I like to get the tan, but
Yeah,
I'm
well,
gonna
we now know vitamin D is essential to life, right?
I know. So I'll wear trousers now when I do that.
Or suspended.
John Nagel, you're very funny. You're very fun.
Time
That's
has gone by
such a good
so
story,
fast.
and I feel like I got a full meal. I got this great journey into his life, wisdom about older adults, and a segue into a wild Hamptons story, a lesson for you parents out there when you get babysitters. Tell them if your kid is going to take any kind of medication or anything like
Or
that.
vitamins. Yeah.
And don't lie to them. Don't wear a Speedo with a tanning thing and talk to people. It's very rude. But mostly I learned again, affirmed that I like you quite a bit. You're really
Yeah. John, it
nice,
was a pleasure.
positive person. I would like you back to do a different show just on aging because
Yeah.
I just can't imagine anyone not benefiting from that now. And
Yeah.
if you're a fan of this show, please like this episode and subscribe, subscribe, subscribe. I will be posting this on Facebook and others, and I'm sure John wouldn't mind if you like it, like him, follow him, become his friend. He's a good friend. So thank you so much, John.
Thank you, John. It's always a pleasure to see you. And I look forward to more adventures in the Hamptons with you.
Absolutely.
All
All
right.
right, everyone.